Hey, I wanted to show you guys how to do the beard sock pattern. This is the short beard sock, so it's not as big as the long one, but it's the same process of putting it together. So just to get started, you have your main piece, which is the outer layer. You can do your lining also, and it's just like any other face cover or mask attaching the lining. It's just a little bit shorter than the outer, and then it sews. You hem the edges and then you sew it with the outer. I'm not doing it with this one right now because I'm not. So, but you can use your imagination on how it goes together. So I have my main piece. I have my beard sock back piece, which, like I said, I'm doing the short version, so it's not very wide. And then I have my bands right here, and then I have my little side bands right here. So the first thing I'm going to do, and then I'm also, just to let you know what I'm doing, I'm going to do the hidden seam, the seam-free edge, so it's going to feel better on the face than just doing a regular band. So I'm going to start with my short little pieces, and I am going to attach them to both sides right here. And sometimes it's really hard to see where the curve is, especially if you cut sloppy like I do. So just line it up to the side and then go to where the curve starts. There should be a little tiny corner right there, and then you just want to pin both those ends and then stitch that. And I'm going to skip the pinning for the sake of time, and so I'm just going to stitch these right on the edge right there. And I'm actually going to do it with my serger. So I'm going to serge the edges right here. You can do it with a regular machine. Just use a stretch stitch. And your stretch stitches, your straight stitches are going to be the first couple. Your stretch stitches are usually the next ones, but they just have to stretch with the fabric. So I'm going to serge these edges right here. Honey.
I do my nails outside.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mom. I get to do that.
Okay, so I have those stitched on right on the sides, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this around like that, and I'm going to fold it all the way around the fabric, and I'm going to stitch right along here, so that creates like a nice little edge. I'm going to do it on the front and kind of feel my fabric on the back to make sure I'm catching it, but I like doing it on the front so I can see where I'm stitching. So I'm going to set this to a zigzag and set my stitch length a little bit longer, and I'm just going to stitch this in. Wherever my foot pedal is. There we go. I'm going to stretch that because this is stretched a little bit, not a whole lot. I'm going to make sure I'm stretching it while I go. Now I don't backstitch on these ones because they're going to be included in a seam, so there's not really a reason to backstitch those. Okay, so there you have your seam right on there. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to fold that over. I'm going to stretch it up. then pull the end and stretch as I sew. So I have both of those. Now I do have extra fabric in the back right here. You can see that. I can trim that, or if you want to line it up with the edge so you don't have as much extra fabric, there's that too. But doing this way, it kind of makes it, you have your 1/4 inch seam allowance right in there, and it just kind of hugs it. Just depends on the fabric that you're using. This is bamboo lycra and it's very lightweight, so I can get away with bringing it right to the edge and still keeping the stretch that I need for that. Okay, so I have those done. Now I'm going to put my beard sock back onto the beard sock front, and I'm just going to do that by lining up the bottom like so and bringing it out to the edge just like that. And obviously I was rushing right there. It's not a huge deal. I'll probably just adjust that a little bit as I go. But then you clip right there. Just clip the edges, pin the edges, however many you want to. I usually don't pin it all, and for the timeliness of this, I'm just not going to pin it. I'm going to stitch along the bottom edge here. What do you need, Jillian? Yeah, go ahead. Okay, so I have my beard sock stitched onto the bottom part. So that creates the beard sock. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to add the bands. So take your band, find the center, and I'm going to do the same thing with this band as I'm going to make it kind of seam free, so I'm not going to fold it or anything. And then the center of your beard sock, and you're going to go to the back part of the beard sock right here, and you're going to put that right there. Now this one I will clip because I need it to stretch the right way. Then I'm going to measure 2 inches out, or 2.5 inches. Really depends on your preference. I believe in the pattern I might have put 2.5 inches. It's a guideline. It just depends on really on how much you want to stretch it. But it's the same for the beard sock as it is for the rest of the pattern. So I'm going to pin that to the side right here. Now let me do the other side too. There is 2.5 inches, and pin it right to that side. Okay, now what do you do with this part, because it is a little wonky to figure out? You want that inside of the beard sock to be flush up against your band. And the short size is a little bit more difficult than the bigger ones because you don't have as much fabric to work with here. You want to stretch it too. So you just kind of have to work the fabric to make it go where you want it to go. So this little portion right here can be kind of confusing. So I have the side band right here, and then I have my regular band pinned up to it. And then what happens with this I mean, that's really your choice which way you want the seam to go. Personally, I don't think it matters too much. I just want my seam to lay flat. So I am going to fold it up like this, and I'm going to sew it like that. So that way I'm catching the front, I don't have a gap in there, and I'm just going to make sure that I stitch all of the fabric right in there, and I'm catching all the edges. That's the most important part. So let me stitch this on my serger really quick.
Going where the white beaker. Mom, going wear the white beaker.
Yeah, you can wear the stripy shirt. Okay, so now we have that serged on, and let me show you what I did with that seam right there. So I have my side band, and then I have this down, and as I got to this part, I just kind of flipped this seam the other way so it was out of the way and I didn't catch it. Like I said, on the short beard sock, there's less room to work with. On the longer ones, it's easier to manipulate that part. But this one I didn't catch it. This one I did a different way on purpose. So I have my side seam right here. I laid this seam down flat, and so it looks cleaner on that side. Now let me show you what it looks like on the right side. So this one, the way it lays is just like that. You can kind of see the fabric there. And this one, where the seam is laying flat on the inside, it kind of sticks out more on the outside. So how you do that seam right there is going to determine how it lays. This one lays folded in, this one kind of sticks out. So it really depends on what kind of beard you're covering and how you want that fabric to behave. On fabric that has a little more structure, it's going to be more noticeable. So this is, like I said, this is bamboo. It's very lightweight and drapey, so it doesn't show as much. So this seam where I folded it up, it's going to lay in closer to the neck. This seam where I made it flush and made it look pretty on the inside is going to stick out more. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to work on the wrong side of the fabric, and we're going to pin this around. We're going to finish this edge, and you can bring it right to the edge right there and just stitch along the seam, and that's going to give you a bigger edge. What I'm going to do for this one is I'm just going to bring it all the way over and kind of stretch as I go to give it a thinner seam. So it just depends on preference and what you want to do there. These bands, as I go along, I am going to quarter fold them like this. And then when I get into here, I'm going to take away that quarter fold and just go, well, maybe I'll just keep the quarter fold. Yep, I'm just going to keep the quarter fold and continue on going like that. So just so you know what I'm doing. Killian, you can go ask Bethany for help, okay? I want to make sure that I'm working on the right side of my fabric. So I'm going to work over here, quarter quarter fold that. Get my little section started. You can pin this part, it's just completely up to you. You can press, sometimes that helps a lot to get it to go the way you want to go. I usually don't. Where's my foot pedal? Okay. So quarter fold as you go, or pin and have it already, all this work already done. Just depends on what you prefer. A lot of sewing is preference. Just make sure you're catching all of the layers. Now I don't have the quarter fold in the pattern. You're gonna have to bear with me. I can't follow my own instructions or anybody else's. I just kind of sew. So what you get in my tutorials might be different than what you get in my pattern, just because every time I sew something I do it a completely different way. Okay. Now I'm getting into here, so I am quarter folding and I'm going to ride that seam. So I'm sewing on the back side of my fabric. If I want to make sure the front side looks okay, I want to make sure that I am uniform all the way across. Now the other thing that I need to remember while I'm sewing this part onto the fabric is that this is stretched. So I can't just sew it like this where it's not stretched, because it won't work. I have to stretch as I go. Otherwise I'm not going to get that tight band that needs for the fit. Dude, you either need a shirt or you need to play Shadowland. You're gonna burn. Your choice. Sorry, my kids are being kids. The joys of being a mom. There's always kids. Alright, so we have that band stitched around the beard sock, and you can see that I'm a little wonky, but that's not a big deal. This is the bottom part, so it's really not going to make that much of a difference. So, so your band length for the beard sock is exactly the same as the length for any other options. The beard sock curve part is the same distance as a regular face cover. So that part is still going to cinch up against the face like any other face cover. So we have that bottom part. Now we're going to work on the top band. So I'm going to find my center. There it is. And then find the center of this. There it is. And then I'm going to pin my centers. And you can use as many or as little pins as you want. It's up to you. Again, we can go back to preference. Okay, and then I'm going to measure out 2.5 inches. Let's see, 1, 2.5. I'm gonna put that right on the band edge. Let's do this side. 1, 2.5. Add my clip. Right, and again, I'm going to serge this. You don't have to serge it. You can use your regular machine for this part. I just like it because it's easier to fold around and keep my seam allowance completely uniform as I go. Okay, so another reminder as you're stitching along here, I only clipped it twice. You do need to stretch that band in order to get it to cover all of that fabric right there. So you can see what it looks like is that band, the top part right here isn't stretched, but the bottom part is, and that's the way it's supposed to look. So even as we're stitching on the rest of this, we need to make sure that we're stretching as we go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start at the center and I'm just going to fold that over. And like I said, you can make your band, you can bring it right to the edge if you want that thicker band. This one I am doing a thin band, so I have extra fabric here, which isn't a big deal, and I'm just going to fold it all the way over and just to cover that seam allowance. So I'm going to clip that right there because that's my center, and then my sides I'm going to clip also. You know what, let's keep this seam hidden. So I'm actually, instead of just doing the tri-fold, I'm going to do a quarter fold. So this is more like a binding. Do that. Redo that center one. And there's one. There's two. There we go. And then over here, there's one, there's two. So that is all the pins that I like to do. But as I go, when I stretch this, my fold stays right there, so it makes it really easy, and I don't really need all the pins because my fold, I'm going to stretch as I go, and my fold's going to stay right where I want it to. So even though it doesn't stay right now, when I stretch it and as I'm sewing, I'm using my hands and I'm keeping that constant tension in order to keep it where I want it to go. So let me start on this end, and we're going to stitch from the top this time. Don't pull your machine like that. See if I can pull it closer so I can work a little easier. Okay. Where are you? There you are. There's one, there's two, and there is three. Let me make sure I am stitching on the right side of my fabric so that way I don't end up all wonky like I did last time. This one's for my husband, so if I make the stitching wonky on top, he will notice it and he'll say something and I'll have to get my seam ripper out. So I'm not gonna do that. He's my big biggest critic, and I absolutely love it. Okay. So there's my foot pedal. Let's get my fold going. Now I do pull a little bit of tension on this only to keep my fabric where I want it. So I could add a bunch of pins and just kind of sew like this, but it makes it a lot harder. So if I pull a little bit of tension, especially with knits, it makes my fabric go exactly where I want it. And sometimes just holding a finger there will help also. If you do have trouble with this, or if it's not working for you, make sure that your grain line and your stretch line are lined up the right direction. That makes a huge difference with this also. Okay. Fold, fold, fold. Binding is always time consuming, but it turns out pretty nice when you're done. Okay, now I'm going to go on the back and make sure that my folds are where I want them to be and covering the seam, so that way it turns out nice and even. Now I am stretching this as I go because I need the band to behave the way I want it to. So if I just left it like this, I would have folds of fabric in here, and I don't want that. I want it to be straight. So I'm pulling it to the width of the fabric right here. I'm not overstretching it. I'm just stretching it to the width of the fabric that needs to be covered. Checking, making sure I'm good there. And then to the end, look under my fabric, make sure I have it where I want it, and continue on. Got a little off keister there. Okay. That, get my seam tucked in there. Very hard sewing when your sewing machine is not right in front of you. Okay, and there is that. So now we have the beard sock done. I missed a little spot right there, but that's okay. You shouldn't mind it too much. Kind of blends in with the blue. Oh well. But you can see my stitching right there and how it looks on the back. A little wonky, but not too horrible. And there is the beard sock. So what I'm actually going to do now is I am going to add pony beads to my to the sides of this. We'll do blue. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put pony beads on each side, just like this. And to get that to happen, I'm going to find my edges, and I'm going to use my tweezers and stuff it in this little pony bead, like that. Takes a lot of force. My bands are Tencel Lycra, and it's very thin like bamboo, so this should work. I've tried it a couple times. This will not work with cotton like or trying to stuff it in there. I've tried it. It's incredibly frustrating, but for thinner fabrics it works pretty good. So I have that little knob you can see in there, and I'm going to use this little hook and just kind of work it out this way. See if I can get both sides to pull through at the same time. And then there we go. I have my bead on. So, and he can trim these however he wants, or tie a knot or whatnot, whatever he wants to do. I'm gonna do this side one more time because I made that look super easy, didn't I? First time I did it, I spent probably 2 hours trying to get it through that silly little pony bead. Didn't work very well. Okay, so I have my 2 ends and my tweezers. And I'm just going to make sure I get both of those edges and stuff it in there really good. This one's not in there so much. Push. Come on, pony bead. So I'm putting quite a bit of amount of force in here. Try to get it to stuff through. And then my hook. There's one. I see you in there. The other band is just sliding out barely. There it is. See if I can get it to pull through. Look at that. It's not gonna work. Oh, come on. You can do it. There it is. Okay. So now we have 2 pony beads, and if you make holes in your fabric like I do, just tie a knot and trim the edge. That's why I work with the ends and make my bands a little bit longer, so I can make mistakes and nobody will ever know except for me. Alright.
Where are the band-aids?
Hold on, sweetie. You go sit on Papa's chair and I'll take care of you in a minute.
I washed it off.
Good job. I'm proud of you. Okay. Just clipping the edges. Alright. There we go. We have a beard sock with pony beads. Try it on my face. I don't have a beard, but it's pretty good. Okay. There you go.